కరోనా రెండో దశ దేశాన్ని ఉపాధి సంక్షోభంలోకి నెట్టేసిందని భారత మాజీ ప్రధాన గణాంకవేత్త ఆర్థికవేత్త ప్రణవ్ సేన్ అన్నారు. గ్రామీణ నిరుద్యోగం ఎన్నడూ లేనంత తారాస్థాయికి చేరిందన్నారు. దేశంలో లాక్డౌన్ను తొలగించిన వెంటనే ఆర్థిక పరిస్థితుల్ని మెరుగుపరిచేందుకు కేంద్రం ఒక ప్యాకేజీని ప్రకటించాలన్న ప్రణవ్ సేన్ దానికోసం ఇప్పటి నుంచే ప్రణాళిక రూపొందించాలని సూచించారు. కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వ టీకా విధానం ఏమాత్రం బాగా లేదని ప్రణవ్ సేన్ అభిప్రాయపడ్డారు. కోవిడ్ తొలి దశతో పోల్చితే రెండో దశలో వ్యవసాయ రంగం ఎక్కువ సమస్యలు ఎదుర్కొనే పరిస్థితి ఏర్పడిందని వివరిస్తున్న ప్రణవ్ సేన్తో ముఖాముఖి.
కరోనా తొలిదశ వల్ల జరిగిన నష్టం నుంచి భారత్ క్రమంగా కోలుకుంటున్న సమయంలో రెండో దశ ఒక సునామీలా వచ్చిపడింది. ఇది ప్రస్తుతం దేశాన్ని చావు దెబ్బతీస్తోంది. కరోనా వల్ల ఏర్పడిన ఆరోగ్య సంక్షోభం దేశ ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థను కూడా దారుణంగా కుంగదీస్తోంది. కోట్లాది మంది ఉపాధిని నాశనం చేస్తుంది. బహుశా భారతదేశం గత 50 సంవత్సరాల్లో ఎదుర్కొంటున్న అతిపెద్ద మానవతా సంక్షోభం ఇదే. ఈ నేపథ్యంలో ప్రస్తుత సంక్షోభం పర్యవసానాలు ఏమిటి, దేశ ఆర్థిక పరిస్థితులను మెరుగుపరిచేందుకు, కష్టకాలంలో పేద ప్రజలను ఆదుకునేందుకు ప్రభుత్వం ఎలాంటి విధానాలు చేపట్టాలి వంటి అంశాలపై ఈరోజు ఈటీవీ భారత్తో మాట్లాడేందుకు ప్రసిద్ధ ఆర్థిక నిపుణులు డాక్టర్ ప్రణవ్ సేన్ సిద్ధంగా ఉన్నారు. ఆయన గతంలో భారతదేశానికి ప్రధాన గణాంకవేత్తగా పనిచేశారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సార్ ఫర్ జాయినింగ్ అస్. The first question is about the present state of our economy. Even before we were hit by the COVID first wave, the Indian economy was slowing down. And now the second wave is also having a devastating effect on it. Is India heading towards a livelihood crisis?
I think we are there already. If the latest employment figures are anything to go by, rural unemployment, which has almost never earlier crossed 2 to 3%, is now at more than 14%. So clearly livelihoods are being, urban unemployment has already gone up, it had gone up to 14%. Now rural employment has gone there as well. Now this does suggest a fairly strong hit on livelihoods, because if we are talking about around 14% of our labor force being unemployed, that is a lot.
Sir, according to the Ajit Premji's University study, the 1 year of COVID-19 pandemic has pushed 23 crore Indians into poverty. There is a strong argument that the central government must transfer cash around rupees 7,000 per month for some time to poor family, to every poor family, to provide relief and to revive the demand in the economy. What is your view on this?
Problem is that we simply do not have the kind of database that you would need to be able to do this in a targeted way. So either you have to do it universally so that everybody who has an Aadhaar card gets the money, or you have to be prepared to be able to address only a part of the problem and not the full problem that you're talking about.
Sir, in the second wave, the pandemic is widely spreading in the rural areas. What will be the impact on rural economy as well as the Indian economy as a whole?
Quite serious. You see, last time around, last year, when the pandemic started and the lockdowns happened, rural India was not affected at all. Okay, yes. There was some effect that came in terms of the supply chain of agricultural goods, but that was mainly a trader to trader problem. It was not a villager to trader problem. As a result, last year the rural economy held up, and in fact our entire economy was being held up mainly by rural India. This time around, with COVID now rapidly spreading in rural areas, the production may not get that badly affected, although there may be some effects there if landowning households decide to cut back on the number of workers and laborers that they hire for the harvesting and the weeding seasons. Then you may see an effect on production. But the bigger problem is going to be in the supply chain. You see, as far as the supply chain was concerned, there was no fear involved. So mandi transactions were happening normally. This time around, there is a lot of fear. Now with that fear, the question is, going to the local mandi, where they will be exposing themselves to the pandemic? Or will the trader be willing to go into villages? Will he be allowed to go into villages? So we are really talking about the first stage of agricultural transactions, which is farmer to the small trader, the artisan. Now this is fairly serious, because if that happens, then even with a good harvest, we may get a situation where the income of the farmers are adversely affected, and that's on one side, and on the other side, you may find shortages, particularly of horticultural products.
Okay.
So that may give rise to food inflation as we look ahead.
So during the first wave, the central government announced a relief package, but today it is giving the free ration only. Other relief measures are not being discussed. What might be the reason for it?
I think the reason was that as far as the income support that the government gave, firstly it was too low. As you said, the amount should have been closer to 5,000 to 6,000 at that time. They have been given 500 a month, right? Number one. Number two, it didn't seem to have very much of an effect. So, for people at 500 rupees didn't seem to matter very much. The free grains, on the other hand, have been fairly successful. And so, in any case, I think giving free grains is a good idea, and it should be done. And this becomes particularly necessary if we do see a problem with agricultural supply in the coming season. Then the food support does become important and becomes extremely important.
Okay.
And the good thing about the food distribution is that the PDS system exists, the identification is there, and it's much more easy to implement. Now, you could also use the PDS system for disbursing cash.
Okay.
Right? But that is a little more tricky.
Sir, what do you think about the effectiveness of the last year's relief package?
In terms of saving lives and livelihoods, not a whole lot. A lot of the package that we talk about is really credit support to existing firms. So MSMEs and large enterprises were getting a lot of additional credit and a moratorium on repayment of their past debt. The bulk of it was that. The second large component was, and this I welcome, is the government paying off the money it owed to others, such as FCI, such as Fertilizer Corporation. These are large numbers being talked about, but also there's a very large number of purchases that the government has made from the SME sector, the small and medium enterprises.
Okay.
So those were paid back. Now that's very good because it helped these units to survive. Okay? In terms of demand stimulus, the amount has been very small. Okay? So that 9.5% fiscal deficit is essentially to meet two things. The first was to make up for the shortfall in taxes. And the second was essentially paying off your creditors.
Sir, in your view, what are the steps to be taken by the government to improve the present economic situation?
Well, you see, as far as the present economic situation is concerned, the central government has a limited role to play. What its principal role in this is to be able to direct all transactions, whether of people or of goods, across state borders. That is what the central government should be focusing on. It should remember the huge supply chain disruption that happened last year. Something similar is happening this year with the localized lockdowns that state governments have been declaring,
Okay.
the normal logistical chains are getting disrupted. Okay?
Okay.
This is very difficult for individual state governments to handle
Okay.
because this is a national network of suppliers. Right? So these are the kinds of issues that the center should be focusing on.
Okay.
The second thing the center should be doing is one of the things that's really, really worrying is that last year and again this year,
Okay.
the state governments who bear the primary responsibility of health and providing income support to the poor, they have essentially severely cut back on their investments.
Okay.
There's a very sharp cut in investments across the country
Okay.
just to make fiscal space available for disease management and control and humanitarian assistance.
Okay.
Now, this can be pretty serious because if the states stop projects, then what will happen is our capacity in the future years will not be commensurate to our needs. Right? So this is the time when the central government should actually be financing infrastructure projects by the states.
Yeah.
That's very important, and unfortunately, it's not being done.
Sir, the central government is providing free vaccines for the people who are above 45 years of age only. To buy the vaccines for the remaining people, state governments are competing with each other and private hospitals. What is your take on the India's vaccine policy?
What you are doing in effect is the central government is purchasing vaccine at lower than the cost price. Right? Now, if the vaccine manufacturers have to make a profit, they are going to have to overcharge the states and the private sector. Overcharge, mind you, just to make up for the loss they are taking on their sales to the center.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Which is why you are seeing such high prices.
Okay.
So it should have been central procurement
Okay.
with a formula-driven distribution. That would be the ideal model. But think of what's going to happen now. If the private sector, because they want to immunize their workers, start buying vaccines in a big way, which could very well happen, then you're going to get a situation where the state governments will simply not get enough vaccines. It will either go to the center, which is 50%, which the center is buying given its authority. On the other hand, it will be bought by the corporate sector, which can afford to pay that much. So then, unless the states actually increase the price that they are giving to the vaccine manufacturer, right, they're not going to get enough vaccines.
Okay. Actually, some poor states can't compete with rich states in the market, sir.
This kind of competition in this particular situation is very unhealthy.
Yes.
Very, very unhealthy.
Yes.
Because what you are doing is you're forcing the states and the corporations to essentially bid against each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you're doing. Now that is okay for certain kinds of things, but for vaccines, that's a very, very bad
Yes. We have been neglecting the public health sector for several decades. Government is spending just 1.2% of the GDP on it. What are the changes you suggest in public health policies?
See, this is not easy. Right? Everybody thinks that if we spend more on public health policies today, public health care will improve. The fact of the matter, and this is now has been known for at least nearly 30 years, the real problem are medical professionals. It's doctors, nurses, technicians. Now, you cannot think about increasing the public healthcare system without there being a commensurate increase in the number of medical professionals.
Okay.
Right? Now, the trouble with medical professionals is that is a long-term process. For a person to qualify as a medical professional, you can't do it overnight, right?
Yeah,
Now, so
yeah, it is a right.
the real issue is personnel,
Mm.
right? And to generate that personnel, we have to be able to establish the training facilities, which, by the way, is not covered by the health expenditure. It is covered essentially under education, right? But unless there is a huge increase in the annual number of qualified doctors, annual number of nurses and technicians, expanding the public healthcare system is going to be difficult. Even today, with the not expanded public healthcare system, there are no doctors and nurses available even in PHCs, let alone the CHCs.
How to address the problem? Shortage
You
of
see, the problem was recognized in the mid-90s. So if anybody is interested, they can pick up the 9th five-year plan, which talks precisely about this problem.
Okay.
And what it said is that in order to achieve what we need to achieve, you will have to have a 20-year game plan,
Okay.
because training facilities have to be set up, trainers have to be identified and brought in. So the first step in that was, I don't know if you recall, a decision was taken sometime in the late 1990s or early 2000s, where every district hospital was to be converted to a teaching hospital. Okay? So that you could increase the output of doctors and nurses. Unfortunately, that particular initiative, which would have, I think, worked, that got simply put on the back burner.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Okay?
Yeah.
We are paying the price of that neglect.
Sir, my last question, sir. It is increasingly evident that current paradigms of development, consumption, growth-based economics are directly responsible for the ecological degradation. There is a strong argument that the virus spread is linked to ecological degradation. Should we change our perception about what is development?
It is really based on consumption patterns. Okay? That there are particular types of consumption that people aspire to, and when they reach that, they say that there's been progress. This is fairly typical, and it's natural. It's a human thing.
Okay.
That people would like to reach what they desire to have. The point is, I don't think you can change that.
Okay.
The question is, how do you ensure that the kind of development, kind of growth that is happening will be spreading the benefits relatively uniformly across all income categories, which means creating jobs at the bottom of the employment skill levels, but mainly it must be inclusive. In the Indian context, what that means is a focus on the MSME sector. All right?
Okay.
The problem with the MSME sector is that while the MSME sector is very good at catering to a local market, they simply find it very difficult to cater to the national market. And the reason for it, clearly, is that their ability to market their products is very constricted by the resources. Okay? So that is the area you need to focus on. How can you make the MSMEs first viable, and second, get onto a growth path where they progressively start addressing a larger market. There must be policy preparedness. Once the production and the supply side becomes a little more open, then a fiscal stimulus will be needed.
Thank you very much, sir, for spending valuable time for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.